Welcome to our India business overview, where we can cover the high points of Nu Skin's launching into India, one of the world's largest markets. So we got one of the world's most successful companies going into one of the world's most largest and fastest growing countries. So some of you may say, if you don't know already, who is Nu Skin? Who's this Nu Skin? Well, we're a 40-year-old company with a huge track record of success. We operate in 49 countries around the world currently and have for some time. We listed on New York Stock Exchange. We turn over more than $2 billion a year and have done that for some time. And over 40% of that figure we pay back out to our affiliates and business partners. And that's a big deal, especially when you consider the size of the market in India. We've got all sorts of full-on training programs that cover people from start to finish, including full leadership training. And our products literally have won awards around the world. So this is a great company going to a great country, a country with about 1.4 billion people, which is a massive opportunity. Especially when you factor in that 65% of the population is under 35 years old. The average age, or median age, I should say, in India is 28 years old. So it's phenomenal markets. You've got a lot of well-educated young people who are keen, ready to go, and you can see the figures there. There's opportunities massive. Some people will say, oh, but it's a country with low income. Well, let's look at this. Between 300 and 350 million people currently. Now, 350 million people is larger than the United States. And that's just their middle class in India. And that's set at current rates to double in about 20 years. This is a big deal. This is a big market. And it's also big because it's a very technologically savvy market. And that's very important for our business because so much of our business is done online and on social media. If you look, they've got over at 1.2 billion internet users, most of that on mobile devices, iPads, phones, etc. Look how many people access social media. I mean, it's incredible. And most of those do it through two platforms. Many of you will be very familiar with, Facebook and Instagram. That covers some 90% of the usage. So it's very clean, very clear areas we're used to operating in. But what about turnover? How does the direct sales industry, because we don't operate out of shops, so we're the direct sales industry, how does that do? Well, the industry, not any one company, but the industry in India in 2022 turned over $3.2 billion. And I'm going to use US dollars all the way through this overview because of its consistency internationally. That $3.2 billion, the industry there is growing at an average 13% a year, which is absolutely phenomenal growth. And there's already about 12 million people who are affiliates, distributors with direct selling companies in India. So it's an accepted way of doing business. Now, how does that product breakdown happen? Well, about 74% of the direct sales product sold in India is in wellness. What's wellness product? Well, I think nutritional supplements, that sort of area. And 17% is in the beauty area, I think skincare, cosmetics. Okay, now, what does Nu Skin do? Nu Skin does about $2 billion a year, and about half of that's in wellness and about half of that's in beauty. So we are incredibly well established. We're literally one of the world's only companies that's so well established in those two fields and so equally balanced with our R&D and our sales. Let's look at some other companies that operate in India, our potential competitors as we open there. The largest in 2023 was Herbalife, with nearly $800 million in sales. And then you see two India-based companies, Modicare and Vestige. And then you see another American-based company, Amway, at $220 million. It would be my expectation that based on the fact that in other markets around the world, a number of them, we have as much or more business than any of those two international companies on the list, that we are larger than them in some other markets. So with that said, there's I believe we'll do well over $100 million our first year, and within 4 or 5 years, we're going to go on to be right at the top of this list or near the top of this list. So that's a big opportunity, because you think they're paying out 40% of that back to the affiliates who are working with us on this project. That's a lot of money. Some people, I guess the most common question we get is, but your products are prestige, high-end products. They won't sell in India because of the lower incomes. Well, let's look at that for a minute. It's not accurate, because remember, we already operate in markets like Vietnam, the Philippines, Indonesia, that have as low or lower incomes than India. And also, there's more millionaires in India than there is in the United States, which people seem to forget on often. We really have 3 product areas where we can tap most of the market. And that is our premium product range, which we call Nu Skin and ageLOC. That's our top end product. And that will get, 5 to 15% total of the market can afford those products currently in India. This is based on the Indian figures. And then we got what we call MASHDs, which is really mass prestige put together as a word by our marketing guys, I guess, but it's prestige products, but for the mass market. We refer to them generally as Nutricentials as a brand name. There you've got another 15% of the population that can tap into those. And then we've got a mass market product range we only offer in certain markets like Vietnam and Indonesia and the Philippines, called Sion. And it's a lower cost range, great quality, but just lower cost, more basic range. So if you look at that, we can already, with the products we already manufacture, we already sell around the world, we can successfully target more than half the market in India. And that's before we start adding new products and services, once we're a couple of years into the Indian market and we're well established and really get an understanding of the local situation. To keep our costs down, we'll be using what's called third-party manufacturing as well as imported. This will keep a cost of product down. In fact, one of our largest manufacturers in the United States already has third-party manufacturing factories in India, which we'll be able to tap right in, because we've already got the business relationships with them and have had for a long time. And so we'll have a mix of localized product and imported that'll appeal to that middle and emerging middle class. To that point, a good friend of mine, Paul Cook from New Zealand, has been incredibly successful building business in Indonesia and the Philippines, particularly, other markets as well, but particularly there. And I just want you to hear from him for a moment about his success, how he's found working in lower income market.
So we spent a bunch of time, years actually, in Thailand, the Philippines, Malaysia and Indonesia. Similar buying power to India, but smaller markets. And a bunch of us have made tens of millions of dollars from working in those countries. And people in those countries tend to be entrepreneurial, business-minded. They don't have welfare. They get out and fight for what they have. And this has always fueled our business. With our experience of launching 8 or 10 countries, and the company has launched 48 countries around the world. You put all that together, I wouldn't be sitting here talking about this if I didn't think India was going to be absolutely huge.
Now, by 2030, we're looking at over 4% of the workforce in India being part of the gig economy. That's where people are having the second type side hustles and side jobs and everything else. That's a 200% increase on now. So we're on trend with what's happening in India, and India's on trend with what's happening around the world with what people refer to as the gig economy. And so we're really in the right place at the right time with a fresh new company, with fresh new products and substantial financial potential. What we'll do, how we work that out is this. If we look at this breakdown on the right side of the screen, there is huge amount of ethnic Indians living outside of India, one of the largest expatriate populations in the world. Now, all those figures are permanent residents, not students, things like that. They're not counted in this. So almost 6.5 million in North America, 1 million in Australia and New Zealand, 3.5 million European and Africa, and 3.75 million just in Southeast Asia. So we've got, I don't know what that adds up to, 15 million odd. These are permanent residents of those countries. And that's who we want to approach, because we are not open in India and we won't be open until sometime in 2025. So we can't go in there and talk to Indian people yet. And honestly, it wouldn't be a smart way to do it, because we want to train people in our open markets of how to do this business, how it functions, how the system works, so that they are making money and they're already at a leadership level before we open the market. And as we develop those leaders, and we need to develop more than 1,000 of those leaders around the world, then we'll kick off into India. And it sort of takes thinking globally outside your neighborhood, but acting locally, of who do you know locally? Who do you know here? Who do you know there? Because only certain people can participate. We refer to them as Indian eligible people. And the Indian government says that people who have non-Indian origin with no relationship with India cannot just jump on a plane, go into India and work. And it would be extremely difficult for them to get a work visa. But the people you see on the screen, these groups, are allowed to go into India and work directly, which means once we open these three groups, who we will train and get ready in the outside open markets over the next year, will be the ones to participate. Overseas citizen of India, OCI, the PIOs, the person of Indian origin, and the non-resident Indians. Now, if you're Indian, you'll know what all those mean and what those are. If you're not, well, trust me, when you talk to people of Indian origin, they will understand that. Those are the groups that can participate personally into that market. And that means they'll be able to, if they want to go there or online, directly introduce affiliates once we open in 2025. We also are putting together an India Founders Program where we'll take a percentage of the first year revenue. So if I'm right and we do over $100 million the first year, that's going to be millions of dollars in this pool that will go only to that group of leaders who've developed their India teams, and it will be based on their performance. It'll be split between those people. Now, how are we going to do this? Well, we're in phase one already, and that's market launch prep. And really, we'll be in that until we develop at least 500 India eligible leadership level people in our business. Then we'll move straight into phase two, which is where we start working with the local product manufacturing, getting our digital tool set creation done in local language, everything else, and setting up our global trainings for India eligible leaders in outside markets like Australia or Canada or the US or wherever. Then by the time we've got 1,000 people at that sort of India eligible people at that low leadership level, we will then kick off the business phase three, which is where we build out the offices and hire and train local employees to get the product out to people and everything else. And once we've done that, kick off and launch into the exciting India market. And really that's about it. But it goes back to a $2 billion company, 40-year track record of success, operates in 49 markets already, pays out over 40% of their money every year to its affiliates, and it's got all the training programs. So I would suggest it's well worth taking a look at this business. Thanks for your attention. Keep watching for a detailed Q&A. Hi, I'm Graham Park. With Nu Skin, I've been with Nu Skin for 30 years. I've helped them open about a dozen markets directly where I've traveled and worked in those markets. And I've ended up with business in about 35 of the 49 markets that Nu Skin is open in. So I've got a little bit of experience with opening markets, very excited about the potential for opening the Indian market. But with that comes a lot of questions. And so I thought, who better to ask some questions than a lovely couple I met recently who are looking at the business, and they have a background in the medical field, been in Australia. How long have you guys been in Australia?
16 years.
16 years.
16 years. So they've been here quite a while. Probably a really good representation of a lot of people around the world who live outside India, and they've got businesses and successful, but they're always looking at things. So we have Alfine and Ajit, and they're going to ask me some questions about India. So I'm sort of hopeful I can shed some light for you guys on them, because I think as people looking at the business, you've got a better idea of what you need to know, or what people like you would need to know to pursue this. So you go for it.
So congratulations, first of all, Graham, at Nu Skin's opening in India. I think it's about high time you did that. So very good. Congratulations. We were just wondering, with Nu Skin opening in India, will you have a head office? Will you be having a warehouse, a production facility based in India, or are you going to outsource it all from the US?
Very good question. And many companies do that, outsourcing from the US. No, Nu Skin will actually have a head office. Now, I'm not sure what city that will be in. And they will likely have showrooms or outlets in more than one city, because it's such a large country. That's been the standard practice in large geographic countries like China and others, where there's a big spread. In Australia, it's smaller, we only have one. So you would have a head office where your administrative staff is. We would have warehouse where the product goes in and then is shipped out all across India directly to people's homes or to delivery centers. And I know I've been told in India, there's a lot of places that people have where you can go and pick things up you don't want them delivered to your house because of security issues or whatever. We will ship directly to those, which is a process very similar to what we do in South Africa. We will also, and you asked about factories, a lot of our product, well, all of our product currently is made in the United States. However, because of Indian duty and tariffs, the expense of them, which are around 150% in many cases, we will work with what's called third-party manufacturers in India. And very fortunately, one of our major manufacturers in the United States already has facilities in India. So this is a company we've got more than a decade of track record building our products to the highest standard, and it's the same company, it's just a different geographic location, and that will help us keep the costs and availability there, so we're not affected by things, well, like happened in COVID, with materials.
Will Nu Skin be able to get government approval to open business there?
It's thank you, Ajit. That's in India, as they seem to have a federal system, which I guess in some ways is like Australia, in that you have states as well as your federal government. So we need to get licenses at both levels, both at the Indian national government level and at the different states or provinces. What's the correct term? State or province?
States and territories, yeah.
Okay, territories. So they need separate approval. The first one we get is the national one, and that our lawyers have said that's just a process of us going through and ticking the boxes that need to be ticked, such as having the office, the warehouses, and things like that we're genuine, and showing we have the financial ability to do that. We usually have to put up a bond to so we can protect local consumers. And then from that, you go to each province. And that's what's going on literally now and will go on for the next 12 months behind the scenes. We won't see much of it, but there's a team of, I think, 4 lawyers that do that. And then they've hooked up with 1 or 2 law firms inside India who specialize in this area, direct selling.
Okay.
As you mentioned, Graham, it's a direct sell business. So
Yes.
people marketing it in India, would obviously be paid in the local currency. Am I presuming that's right?
You are correct. If for those people living and marketing it in India, they will be paid directly in Indian rupee, and they will get that sent directly into their bank account or however they choose that. Now, normally that will be paid weekly and monthly. In many countries, we can do it daily. I don't know if we can in India or not. It depends on banking regulations, and I just don't have that information yet. But yes, it'll be paid in rupees.
Okay. And what about the same for us here? Because we are living outside of India. How would we be paid?
Good question. How that works in different countries is when all products have obviously a monetary value, be that in dollars or rupee, but they also have a points value. And think of points as our internal currency. So that enables us to have a globalized business. So if a product is worth 10 points in Australia and it's worth 10 points in India, it doesn't matter so much what dollar or rupee, it's called. You will be paid on that, and there's a conversion rate that literally is just set at every pay run based on the conversion rate. It goes from the currency, effectively the points are like a US dollar, and then that goes back out to whatever country you're living in. So for instance, if you're in Australia, you're going to be paid in Australian dollars, it will be converted at, let's say it's 1.5 from the US dollar to the Australian dollar, and that's what you would receive in your Australian bank account. If you live in the United Kingdom, you would get it in English pounds. If you lived in America, get in US dollars, and so forth.
Okay.
Graham, if we were to develop a team inside India, once it opens for business, what sort of income stream are we expecting?
You can expect, and it really depends on the size of your team and the amount of, it's not dependent on the number of people, it's dependent on the amount of product turnover or the amount of volume, sales volume in your team. You would earn, depending on where that business is within your team, you will be getting paid between 5 and 20% of the gross turnover. Now that turnover's in the points because of the conversion, but it still works out about the same. Is that so somewhere between 5 and 20% on the turnover. So as an example, let's say you built a business that was turning over 100,000 US dollars equivalent there a month, you would be getting somewhere between 5 and 20,000 US on that. Obviously, if it was more than that, the percentage doesn't change. Once your group's at a certain figure, the percentage gets pretty stable, but it's never less than that 5%. And that's on your whole organization. And you're paid effectively the same, whether it's income from India, where you don't live, or income from, say, Australia, where you are living, or perhaps friends in the United Kingdom who are doing the business. You will get the same amount of income. You can track it on your computer every month. There's a very sophisticated back-end office program that you can see exactly what comes from each market.
Okay. I've looked through the catalog and seen quite a few of the Nu Skin products. Now, some of them are quite highly priced. Obviously, being such top-end products, they are quite highly priced. And looking at the demographics of India, where the majority is the middle class, how do you hope to reach the majority of the population in India with the Nu Skin products?
Yeah, there's probably, the reality is we'll probably reach about half the population, which, to be honest, is well over 700 million people. So that's plenty. But you're right. There's a percentage, a big percentage, like half the population, that our products are probably, even our lower cost products, are probably not going to go particularly well in, and we won't target that at this point. Later on, we are looking at options to go in that end of the market, but initially we run really three price classes of products. One is the premium product, which is your high end, might be your well spas, your age lock products. That's sort of in that premium range. And so realistically, whether it's Australia or India, only people with a fairly decent cash flow will buy those products, but they're the best products available. So it's like good, better, best. And if you go from best to better, then you go into the Nutrimetics range, which is a high-end mid-range product, mid-range in cost, but high-end quality. That would appeal to a lot more people. And then by the time we have a lower level of product available that we sell now in Indonesia and the Philippines, Vietnam, and a few other low-income markets. It's called Sion. We still make it. Everything else is still a great product, but it's deliberately aimed at that lower end. With those three product ranges, we believe we can target effectively about half the marketplace at this time, especially if we wrap in that some of them will be made locally inside India with third-party manufacturing to keep the duties and things like that down.
Sure. Sounds good.
We've got friends and family in other parts of the world. And would we be able to introduce them to Nu Skin, or do we need to wait when you're opening up the Indian market?
No, you can, when you join Nu Skin as a business here in Australia or in any of our 49 open countries, you can immediately introduce other people. So as an example, if you join today and tomorrow you were talking to your sister-in-law in San Francisco, or your brother-in-law in London, or your cousin in Durban in South Africa, they could join literally within minutes online, and they could be ordering product, and you would be receiving royalties from that immediately. And as they built a team, you would be getting the same royalties as if you had introduced people here in Australia. Now, they may be all of Indian extraction or not. That doesn't really matter to us. But without India being open, it doesn't matter for those people.
And just following up on that question, are we able to send products to India now or take it along with us go on holiday?
I have gotten nasty letters from the company when I used to send a lot of product to Singapore before they opened. The company's position is that you shouldn't do that. Why do they say that? They say that for a very good reason. They don't want to upset the Indian government if they see thousands of packages coming in. Also, they can't offer the consumer protection that is there once the product is approved by your country's health and regulatory authorities. Obviously, people will send product to friends and family. I always recommend against it because one of the other things that can happen, they can vanish in the mail, and that's pretty upsetting. People start using them, they look really excited, and then you say, oh, you can't get it for a year. And so there's that side. So I recommend against it, but obviously if you're going back and there's family and friends, it's understandable that people want to share something great. So, but I seriously recommend against it as a business model.
So Graham, for people setting this up from Australia, will they have to travel to India to initiate and manage the business?
Well, that's what we used to have to do when we opened the markets. And that's why I ended up almost living in some markets years ago. I can remember I was getting handwritten Christmas cards from the Plaza Hotel in Singapore, which my wife was unimpressed with after she saw the bill. But the answer today is no. Now, I'll qualify that. Everything can be done online. We will have full digital backup. Wherever they're living in India, they'll be able to sign up online without going into offices and all those sorts of things. So you can communicate just like we are online and not go into India. Obviously, if your team gets large enough, you may want to go into India to work with people, but no, to answer this, there is zero requirement to go there and initiate the business. Once we open, you will be able to register people in India, effectively just the same as here. They might have to show an Indian ID or something, but realistically, very little difference. And no, you do not have to travel there.
Perfect. I think that's kind of
sums up everything.
Sums up most of the questions that we had for you, Graham. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I think it's interesting you raise them because they are questions that seem to come up a lot. And I find, especially the cost one is a big thing when people see the average income here versus there. But understand, we already operate very successfully in markets like Indonesia, the Philippines, and Vietnam, all of which the average income is probably lower than in India, especially Indonesia. So, and also the technological development of those markets is not near as good as India, where more people have mobile phones, more people have access to the internet than in many Southeast Asian countries. So I'm really glad you raised that one because it's a common one. Thank you very much for those questions. Hopefully it helps.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're looking forward to hearing more about Nu Skin developing and the progress that we're making.
Well, based on other markets we've been in, I would suggest I'd be extremely surprised if we don't do over $100 million the first year. And they're going to pay out over 40% of that back as royalties. So obviously someone's going to make some money out of that, which is wonderful. And the best thing is the opportunity it provides people within India to fulfill some entrepreneurial dreams or desires, ambitions that they have, which is great.
Yeah, great. Wonderful.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you.
Thanks.
It was a pleasure.
What's next? Please speak with the person who shared this overview with you for more details on the exciting opening of the India market.